Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to speak today. And it's an honour to be on a panel with such distinguished company. I've been asked to analyse the current state of the racing and betting market globally and outline the main forces at work which are driving the changes observed over recent years. I will discuss how these forces have led to structural changes, in particular the emergence of the multinational betting companies and betting exchanges. I will look at some of the successful strategies that certain nations have implemented to grow their industry, and lastly make some suggestions on how racing and betting could work more cooperatively in the future. I will show a lot of slides, but I believe a picture tells 1,000 words, particularly in trying to communicate a lot of information at a macro level. The most important nations from a betting perspective are Japan, Great Britain, Australia, France, the US and Hong Kong, who together comprise 81% of the global betting market. I will focus principally on these 6 markets today, given their scale. In 2012, the total turnover on racing betting globally was Euro 95 billion. Adding together the 6 major racing nations, total turnover is unchanged in constant currency terms since 2006. However, as the slide shows, there have been very different trends across the main markets over the period. Activity levels, as measured by races run, show varied trends. Great Britain, Hong Kong and France are scheduling more races than occurred in 2006. Japan and the US are in decline, and Australia is largely unchanged. Amounts wagered per race are on the rise in Australia, Hong Kong and France, but have fallen in the US and Japan and dropped dramatically in Great Britain. In the stronger racing nations, the field sizes are larger. In the nations showing the most troubling trends, field sizes are low or even falling. In the UK, in fact, over the 11 years from 2001 to 12, the number of starters per race fell from 11.6 to 9.3. There are 4 main forces that, in my view, are impacting global betting markets. They are the global economy, competition, technology and liberalisation. Several of these forces are interrelated. Firstly, the global economy. What was the impact of the GFC? In several markets, declining trends were evident well before 2008. When assessing the impact on household incomes, however, the GFC was more muted in many countries than its impact on the national economy. If we analyse betting trends compared to household income trends market by market, we can see the following divergent trends. In Japan, betting has been falling year on year. Household consumption spending grew steadily through this period, thus a real decline in wallet is being experienced by Japanese racing. The US is also experiencing a widening gap between betting and household spending. In Great Britain, gross win took a material hit and household spending didn't begin to grow again until 2012. In Australia, incomes have steadily risen. Despite this, less of the household budget is being spent on betting on horse racing. France is healthier. Wagering turnover and household spending appear well correlated in this country and have been steadily on the rise. And Hong Kong is the standout market. The second force, competition. In an increasingly mobile society, competition is coming from other sports within betting outlets, new entrants forcing down pricing and thus funding, including offshore operators who avoid funding racing completely, and other forms of gambling. As we've just seen, in all markets, the amounts wagered on sports are growing at a faster rate than amounts wagered on racing, but the baselines vary considerably. In the US and UK, sports have always been a large part of the wagering market, and their share is continuing to grow. Betting gross win in the decade to 2013 saw sports grow in the UK from 58% to 72%, and US Nevada sportsbooks from 53% to 80%. In Australia, where sports betting was made legal in 1995, gross win from 2003 to 12 has grown from 4% to 12%. In France, at 2013, sports betting accounted for 19% of total turnover across the market from all operators. Sports betting offered by the Hong Kong Jockey Club accounted for 36% of all race and sports wagering gross win in 2013, from nothing in 2003. But what's interesting is race wagering has grown since 2006 in an environment where it also competes with sports betting. In those markets where the market has opened to new entrants, the change has often been disruptive for the incumbents. For example, in Australia, as well as the growth in sports betting as a product, potential growth by tabs has to some extent been cannibalised by corporate bookmakers based in the Northern Territory. The latest phase of market change has seen the expansion of the UK and Irish bookmakers. Paddy Power's Australian operations accounted for 32% of their total revenues in 2013 from nothing in 2009. William Hill's Australian and US businesses, grown largely through acquisition, account for 14% of revenues in 2013. The opening of race wagering markets for gaming, particularly casino gaming, can have significant impacts. The most striking example, which was quite damaging to racing, was the introduction of gaming machines into UK bookmaker shops. Gaming accounts for 38% of gross win in the UK betting market. Just as well, they're limited to 4 machines per shop. More recently, casino gaming has emerged as a meaningful threat to Asian racing industries. In Hong Kong, new casinos began opening in nearby Macau in the early part of the last decade, and growth has been strong. Despite this, overall betting in Hong Kong has also grown, in particular since 2006. Singapore and Malaysia appear to have been more significantly affected by new casinos in the region. Betting turnover peaked at Singapore 2.6 billion in 2009. Both integrated resorts opened in Singapore in 2010, and turnover has been in decline and flattening ever since. Looking to the future, competition from this source will only intensify. Australia could have another 5 casinos by 2020, and there is a real prospect that Japan will issue 4 licences. Macau has no limit on numbers, and Singapore could issue another licence post-2017. The Hong Kong Jockey Club estimates that Macau casino revenues could double to US $90 billion by 2020. The third major force is innovation and new technologies, presenting both threats and opportunities. The trend to online usage by punters for betting has been well established in major markets and is a natural migration from phone to internet. Betfair, of course, takes all of its business from non-retail channels. Paddy Power now earns 79% of revenues from non-retail sources. William Hill now takes 42%, and Tabcorp now at 29% in Australia. Not surprisingly, the leaders in the migration to online have been the leaders in innovation across the sector. Mobile is the new medium, however. According to industry research, online device shipments topped 1 billion units in 2012, with PCs comprising only 26% of shipments. 7 years earlier, PCs comprised 100% of the over 200 million devices shipped. Within the mobile category, Androids have overtaken other devices as the channel of choice. And digital is the new shopfront. A comprehensive survey undertaken in late 2012 asked 664 international companies to evaluate how their consumer marketing was changing and would change as a result of mobile technology. Of the entertainment, sports, media publishing executives surveyed, in 2012, 33% of all consumer purchases were made through a digital mobile device, but this was forecast to grow to 49% by 2015. Technology will intensify the competitive impacts being felt in all markets as smartphones and tablets allow the punter to bet anywhere, regardless of monopolies. Ladbrokes recently highlighted how valuable the mobile multi-channel customer is in their business. They estimate the customer who combines retail, online and mobile channels delivers 1.7 times the value of the average customer. Within the online category, recent company disclosures highlight how dramatic the trends have been. In William Hill's case, 20% of all online turnover is now via smartphones and tablets, and 31% is via a combination of channels. Less than half is PC only. In Tabcorp's case, mobile devices account for half of all online turnover. These forces have driven structural changes in the wagering market. One of the most significant developments in recent years, partly driven by the forces at work, has been the rise of the multinational betting company. The UK and Irish operators have been most aggressive, and growth has largely been driven by acquisition. This table demonstrates the appeal of the major betting markets to UK operators. Australia has been a target. It has a small population, but high spending per capita on race wagering, strong forecast population growth, well-established licensing regimes, and banking and legal systems are also appealing. Moreover, the existing corporate bookmakers in that market had developed attractive brands, which have largely been retained, and significant customer bases. Strong growth is being delivered and is anticipated to continue. Paddy Power has been the most astute buyer of Australian bookmakers, entering the market early and executing well. Sportingbet's return on investment on its first full year of ownership of Centrebet was 11%. However, William Hill has had less early success with its subsequent purchase of Sportingbet in Australia, showing a 6% return in the last financial year, and I am still scratching my head on the acquisition of TomWaterhouse.com. Another significant change has been the emergence of betting exchanges as a way for customers to bet directly against each other. Betfair launched the first active exchange in 2000. Many other imitators followed, but failed to achieve Betfair's early success. In the UK and Europe, the landscape is littered with closed betting exchanges. According to recent industry analysis, at least 29 exchanges have failed. The only contenders to Betfair at present are BetDAC, now owned by Ladbrokes, Matchbook, WebEx, and S-Markets. The core principle of a betting exchange is the need for liquidity, and this requires volume, making it hard for new entrants to start up. Higher taxes and costs imposed in new markets have forced commissions up and reduced the price advantage that exchanges delivered compared to bookmakers. Betting exchanges initially captured early growth in the UK, but have struggled in some other markets, particularly in Australia. Betfair is estimated to hold 22% share of the online market in the UK, but data in other markets is too imprecise to estimate shares. Betfair's first mover status in the UK delivered liquidity, but elsewhere the going has been tougher. In November 12, Betfair announced its exit from markets where regulatory uncertainty existed. These markets were 24% of revenues in first half 13. Most significant exits were Germany, Cyprus and Greece. Previously in 2010, Betfair had also closed its French customer accounts as bans were introduced. A small example from Australia might illustrate the point on pricing differentials. Betfair customers are sophisticated, as their analysis shows. But in Australia, the initial starting commission is 6.5% as a result of the impost of Racefields fees. Tabcorp's more sophisticated punters pay similar yields, but there is no risk to the punter with Tabcorp of not getting matched. Hence, the exchange appeal is more limited given the commission structure. It's also been suggested that betting exchanges have compressed bookmaker margins. This chart uses data from annual reports of the major listed UK and Irish bookmakers since 2005, and it's hard to say that margins have been meaningfully affected. Retail win rates appear little changed, but this is not surprising. Telephone and online win rates also don't appear to have been scuttled by betting exchanges. Paddy Power's win rates in online have dropped, but their win rate looked quite high to begin with. Ladbrokes and William Hill win rates in 2013 are slightly up on those of 2005. The online and telephone books' win rates are lower and more volatile, given the more sophisticated punters using these channels. The forces and structural changes have led to a compression in racing's funding base. Gaming machines in most markets make no contribution to racing. Corporate bookmakers often have a lower contribution than tabs. Many moved offshore. Product fees are often lower in fixed odds than the tabs pay. And betting exchanges are a model where how to calculate fees has been subject to much debate, with Betfair in the UK making voluntary contributions, not obligatory. But clearly, despite the challenges being faced, some nations are growing. So what are they doing right? Responses can be grouped into two categories: product and value. Firstly, the live experience must meet the market. Racecourse facilities must keep pace in order to attract an increasingly discerning consumer. The case of the market in Asia is a perfect example. Macau has had casinos since the 1960s, but they were very underdeveloped relative to what is increasingly being built. In Singapore and Malaysia, casino gaming has been available at Genting Highlands and on cruise ships for decades, but the large and upscale integrated resorts changed the game and halted racing's growth, at least in the short term. The Hong Kong Jockey Club attributes part of its significant turnaround since 2009 to refurbished racing facilities at both tracks, with dedicated areas to cater to different demographics. Owners and members have new facilities, and young members have events targeted to them. The public areas have been upgraded to increase their appeal to women. Attendance at the two racetracks last year reached almost 4 million, an 11% increase from its low point of 3.5 in 2006. Second, products have to be easy to understand but interesting. The growth of fixed odds betting in markets where it has recently been introduced has been significant. Early adopters were the sophisticated punters chasing better odds, but now we see in the Australian market that win rates on fixed odds can often be higher than those in the tote pools. Tote win rates on win and place bettings are around 14.25%. As more customers have been introduced to fixed odds betting, the fixed odds gross win has risen. Tabcorp's average yield on fixed odds betting on racing in 2013 was 14.2, almost equal to that in the pari-mutuel pools for win and place betting. It seems the simplicity of knowing the price and the convenience of getting set well before the event is driving new growth in recreational punters. Those markets where betting remains exclusively pari-mutuel may pay attention to this trend. As we have observed, fixed odds is attracting a higher yielding recreational customer. Tabcorp sees yields on low value bets in racing at 23%. Bets between Aussie 20 and 200 yields 16%, and above 200, the more experienced punter sees yields at around 7%. Tabcorp has also introduced multi-bet products into the fixed odds suite, and these are also proving popular with punters, as interesting combinations can create more excitement around a day of betting. Multi-bets account for 38% of turnover, but 66% of revenues. Thirdly, you must engage with your customer. Racing is increasingly followed by older fans, particularly relative to sports. Recent analysis in France showed that only 23% of racing fans are under 35. In sport, 68% are under 35. Where is your future audience coming from if the bulk of customers are approaching retirement? Successful turnaround strategies need to re-engage with the customer, and the demographic who needs to be captured is the younger audience. The Hong Kong Jockey Club has set up a Facebook page for the young members group, and Tabcorp reports that its social media platforms are driving extremely high and growing volumes of viewing impressions, further strengthening their customer insights and relationships. Racing is information rich, and it is a social activity. Younger fans will use social media tools to keep in touch, share tips, and boast about winnings. And the greater the community created in social media, the stronger the following. It is vital for racing to engage with the medium, as punters will be talking about you, good or bad, whether you like it or not. Value-oriented strategies are important too. In the markets showing the greatest degree of decline, the US and Japan, the pricing hasn't changed. In the Japanese market, the takeout is fixed at 25%. In the US, takeout at state-based racetracks and OTBs has remained flat, despite the significant expansion of casino gaming across the nation over the past decade. As we've seen, there is evidence that field sizes and betting turnover are correlated, at least in the negative. The greatest declines in turnover have been witnessed in the US and UK since 2006, and in these markets, field sizes have fallen most dramatically. A fascinating side note in the Australian market, and this is the whole market, not just Tabcorp, has been that yields have risen across the market over time, despite the entry of UK bookmakers. There are a few reasons I could postulate for this: innovation, broader advertising, marketing and news flow stimulating interest in the market and attracting new customers, and of course the new customers being less attuned to value than sophisticated punters, leading to high wins. Another feature, as you'll see there, is the A peculiarity of the Australian market is the abolition of the overall cap of 16% on pools, combined with the migration of the lower win and place betting to fixed odds and introduction of new bet types. Even the takeout in the pari-mutuel pool is rising. The smartest innovation I have seen in the Australian market in recent months is a debit card launched by Ladbrokes. The card allows punters to withdraw their winnings at an ATM within a few seconds after an event. The immediate availability to the punter of their bookmaker winnings will be a game changer in the divide between retail monopolies and online bookmakers in this market, in my view. To sum up, while I'm an analyst, not a racing administrator nor a bookmaker, I have been an observer of this industry for many years. So from the perspective of financial sustainability, please allow me to make these few observations. In many markets to date, racing has become disconnected from wagering. Racing is a price taker but has lost control of the distribution. A direct financial linkage needs to be built between racing and betting in every market to incentivise innovation and growth regardless of the ownership model. Racing does need to manage supply more effectively. Racing also needs to lobby governments to introduce uniform legislation to enforce payment for content by all wagering operators. Australia has gone some way towards enforcing its rights to payments, and bookmaker margins have actually increased in recent years, even with the impost of race fields. So race fields didn't kill off that part of the industry. Racing's pricing between bookmakers and totes needs to be aligned. Tote betting is declining and fixed odds are growing. Racing's pricing needs to reflect funding needs that are adequate on the basis that fixed odds bookmakers will bear a growing proportion of industry funding. Thank you for your attention.